How did Jake Paul, a YouTube prankster and Vine star, end up becoming one of the most talked about pro boxers, and what does this all mean for the future of the sport? At the time of the making of this video, Jake Paul has a 10-1 pro boxing record. He has had 11 matches out of which he won 10 and lost 1. In this video, I will break the fights down and explain why he is ruining the sport. In his pro boxing career, Jake Paul has fought against 10 people, of whom 6 were first-time boxers. Let's begin with the first 2, AnEsonGib and Nate Robinson. AnEsonGib is a fellow YouTuber, and Nate Robinson is a retired NBA player. So they had no combat sport experience to speak of, unless you consider the Nate Robinson and Junior Smith brawl in the Knicks versus Nuggets game.
And now hopefully cooler heads will prevail. Nate Robinson throwing a punch, Smith coming right back at him. And this has turned ugly.
So they were basically just beginners with a few months of experience. Jake has fought 4 guys with combat sport experience outside of boxing: Ben Askren, Tyron, Woodley, Nate Diaz, and Mike Perry. They were all mixed martial artists who were associated with the UFC before their contracts expired, and they went ahead to do their own thing. We know for a fact that fighting abilities are not transferable from one discipline to another, and even though some of them have shown decent striking ability in their chosen combat sport, boxing is a separate sport, and most of them can't hold a light against a professional boxer who has years of experience under his belt.
Focus.
Jake has fought 4 guys who had professional experience in boxing: Tommy Fury, Andre August, Ryan Bourland, and Anderson Silva. These are probably the only people on whom his credibility as a pro boxer is pegged on. Andre August was a pro boxer with a 10-1-1 pro record. But if you dig a little further, you'll find he had been boxing for over a decade and had only 12 fights to show for it when he fought Jake at 35 years old. In other words, his resume was lacking. Andre had only 3 wins against fighters that had a winning record. His greatest test was against Brandon Martin, which came in August 2023. 4 months later, he fought Jake Paul in December. To add to that, Andre has never fought a boxing match that went over 6 rounds, and that raises questions for someone who has been boxing for over a decade with 12 matches under his name. Jake Paul himself went 8 rounds with Anderson Silva. Ryan Bourland had a boxing record of 17-2 before he fought Jake Paul. He had retired in 2018 at 30 years old to work on oil rigs, but returned once to the ring in 2022 to fight Santario Martin. He came back from retirement again in 2024 to fight Jake Paul, but was knocked out in the first round. Anderson Silva was a boxer in the early stages of his fighting career. He had only 4 professional matches over a span of 24 years before he fought Jake Paul. But today, he is more famous for his exploits as a mixed martial artist than anything else. He did not do well as a boxer, and that was the reason he transitioned to MMA in the first place. This turned out well for him as he went on to become a legend in the sport. His 3-1 pro boxing record was hardly impressive, but many people expected his experience in MMA to pay off in the boxing ring. Tommy Fury is a pro boxer and had an 8-0 record at the time he was fighting Jake Paul. They went the full distance of 8 rounds with Jake, and Tommy won by split decision. It is important to note that this is the best case where Jake was evenly matched with his opponent, in the sense that he was fighting an active boxer who was his own age. And this is the only fight Jake Paul has lost so far.
Daniel Vanderbilt scores it 76-73 to the winner by split decision, Tommy.
When you look carefully at the list of people Jake Paul has fought, you will notice a lot of retirees in various combat sports, and most of them are significantly older than him. These age gap fights he has been involved in make it seem like he is cherry-picking for fighters who are not in their prime and avoids anyone who is an even match. Seeing UFC legends whose careers are over the hill getting clocked when they step into a boxing ring, with a young upstart looking to make a name for himself by making a mockery of their previous career, is pretty sad to say the least. though the paychecks they earn are more than enough to make up for it. Anyway, fighting someone who is significantly older in a combat sport that they are new to does not really strengthen any pro boxer's resume. I cannot see why it should be the case with Jake Paul. The normal trajectory of a boxer was that you had to train for years in private, fighting in the trenches at the amateur level until you rise up the ranks, before you could proceed to launch your professional career. If you did well enough, you would earn your stripes and soon celebrity status and a hefty payday would follow. That was the case for Anthony Joshua winning gold at the 2012 Olympics, or Evander Holyfield winning bronze in the 1984 Olympics. Jake himself realized that he is lacking in the experience department when he went to hang out with the USA 2024 Olympics boxing team.
It's really cool for me to be able to see the stage of boxing that I skipped, and being able to connect with that is very special to me.
While there are plenty of pro boxers today who have never even tried for the Olympics, they have proven their mettle elsewhere in other championships where their skills were tested. But it is becoming clearer in the world we live in today. Perhaps it would be a better move for a boxer to start by garnering a large social media following if they want to make a living out of boxing. Let's look at the case of Ben Whitaker and draw comparisons between him and Jake. Both of them are 27 years old. Jake is 4 months older than Whitaker. Whitaker is probably most famous for his fight with Khalid Gradia that went viral all over social media for his showboating style. If you take a look at it for a few seconds, it'll be pretty clear why. As you can see, Whitaker has the credentials to back his boxing career. He won silver at the 2020 Summer Olympics and has an 8-0 pro boxing record. Even though Jake Paul's pro boxing record is 10-1, Whitaker's worst fight, even at amateur level, cannot be compared to Jake's best fight at pro level. But while Whitaker wins over Jake in skill level hands down, Jake wins over Whitaker in pay level. Jake clearly doesn't have the skills to match. Many will say it's just business, but it still bothers me. This is why I consider Jake to be taking away the spotlight from boxers who have been battle-tested. Perhaps this is not simply a Jake Paul problem, but a sign that boxing associations need to come together and rethink how they go about the whole sport. By sheer force of his clout on social media, Jake Paul has essentially become the high priest of this new crop of influencer boxers, among whose celebrity status is put first before you acquire any actual boxing ability. You don't need to become a good boxer to become famous anymore. Now you can box anyone of any rank in boxing so long as you're famous enough. And that right there is the problem. What is the point of acquiring any skills if clout matters more? Why spend years in the gym training and sparring to sharpen your boxing when your fame is what makes all the difference? Gone are the days of Rumble in the Jungle or Thriller in Manila, where the greatest boxers of the generation came head-to-head and tested their skills for an epic showdown. Now, if you have already got celebrity status, it will be enough. Clout is the new king. This explains why the biggest paydays for Tommy Fury, Andre August, and Ryan Bourland to this day came from their fights with Jake Paul, even though they had all fought more established boxers with better records before. Their toughest opponents with the best records just could not match the clout that came with Jake Paul, but when it comes to their skill level, it is a different story. Jake Paul's fight with Mike Tyson is the perfect example of everything that is wrong with his strategy and highlights all the things I've spoken about before. First, there's the age gap. Here is the case of a 58-year-old man fighting a man who is 27 years old, which is the largest age gap between two professional boxers in history at 31 years. The other fight that comes closest to that was when Archie Moore at 49 fought Mike Diaz at 25, making the age gap 24 years. This is a clip of Mike Tyson at 36 when he announced his retirement after his defeat by Kevin McBride.
He's having difficulty getting up.
I'm just sorry I let everybody down. I just don't have this in my heart anymore. I'm just fighting to take care of my bills, basically. I don't have the stomach for this kind of no more. I'm more conscious of my children and those guys looking at my parents. I don't have that ferocity. I'm not an animal anymore.
Does that mean we won't see you fight again?
Yeah, that's most likely. I'm not going to fight again. I'm not going to disrespect the sport anymore by losing to this caliber of fighters.
I could stop right there, and it would be enough to prove my point. Don't get me wrong, Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson. I'm sure he's got something left in him if his videos are anything to go by. But he is very clearly out of his prime, fighting against a youngster in his prime, even though the youngster has very little to show in terms of experience. Second, there is the health issue. Their fight was called off when Mike Tyson had an ulcer flare-up that prevented him from training. He also had a medical emergency on 26th May while on a flight to Los Angeles, where doctors found out that he had sciatica. This basically means that he experiences pain from the sciatic nerve that runs from the lower back down to the legs. This was to be expected. He's not exactly in the best shape of his life, and he shouldn't be putting such a strain on himself at this stage of his life. He should be on grandpa duties. I mean, I don't see why this fight should even be happening in the first place, but I guess anything can be done if the price is right. Jake Paul has blurred the lines between sport and entertainment. Established boxers in the sport now find themselves questioned by reporters when he calls them out. Usually, you needed to have a proven track record before you could try and fight a boxer like Canelo Alvarez. But now when Canelo goes to press conferences, reporters are hounding him with questions about a fight with Jake Paul.
Canelo, Jake Paul's made a lot of noise, especially last week. Do you take any notice of him?
Who?
Jake Paul. Do you take any notice? He said
That team I'm thinking about is why you guys asking me for that especially fight. Jake Paul, please guys.
Just a few years ago, you couldn't mention these two in the same sentence, but it is 2024, so once again, here we are. When you realize that Jake Paul is among the most talked about and highest paid pro boxers we have in the world right now, at his skill level, it's not hard to believe that the state of boxing has fallen. The spirit of true sportsmanship is dying off, and the sport of boxing is being reduced to mere content for likes and engagement. Well, in 2016, the International Olympic Committee decided to allow pro boxers to compete in the Olympics, and just recently, Jake Paul announced that he is on a quest to qualify for the 2028 Olympics. It's too early to speak of anything now. Maybe Jake Paul is the real-life Rocky Balboa with the great underdog story, and I'm just one of the misguided haters waiting for him to get knocked out. So let's wait on that and see how things pan out. When that day comes, I'm sure I'll see you in the comments calling me out.